Coucou les amis, c'est Camden and welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about improving your accent in French. But before we get started, I just want to give a little disclaimer to mention that having an accent is really not that big of a deal, especially if it doesn't interfere that much with your communication. It's actually a sign that you speak another language and that you are trying something new, which is really awesome. However, there are reasons why people might want to improve their accent. For example, if it really is interfering with communication, working on your accent can make your language more clear and understandable to other speakers. Also, it can help you feel more confident in the language. So, why should you listen to me, some random girl on the internet, about speaking French who obviously isn't French herself? Well, first of all, I am actually a licensed French teacher. I majored in French in college and I did a master's program to get my teaching license. And although I haven't been teaching French since, I've actually been teaching English in France. I've been living here in France for the past 2.5+ years. So, I have experience speaking French in my day-to-day life. Also, I've been a French learner myself and have taken several French phonetics courses. Wait, what did you just say? Phonetics? Yes. Phonetics is the study of speech sounds and the classification of them as well. And it can actually help improve your accent. Which brings me into my first tip, which is Learn the IPA. And that stands for International Phonetic Alphabet, not the type of beer, okay? The International Phonetic Alphabet is a tool that can help you learn the different sounds of the language that you're studying. They look like little symbols, kind of like a different language, but each little symbol represents a specific sound in the language. For example, A, E, that kind of thing.
Another cool tip about the IPA is that you can use it with online dictionaries. For example, if I wanted to look up how to pronounce a word in French, I could go to wordreference.com, for example, and type pamplemousse. There we go. And if you look up here, you can see the phonetic transcription. You can even see how it's pronounced.
My number 2 tip is to get a book with exercises. A book? Are you serious? Come on, I don't want to study like that. I don't like school. Okay, I mean, if you don't like traditional learning, that's okay too, but I think a book can really be helpful because they have lots of different exercises, explanations, and that kind of thing, as well as different charts to show you how to move your mouth. I'll just show you the beginning here of this one. And I've used lots of different books for my different classes. Here's a little chart here. This was just one of them. This is from 100% FLE. FLE stands for Français langue étrangère, French as a foreign language. And they also have different levels, so this is more of an intermediate book, but if you're more of a beginner, they have ones for beginners and ones for more advanced speakers as well. And they also have like recordings that you could listen to. This one has a CD, but if you don't have a CD drive anymore, it's 2020, they do have online recordings that you can listen to as well. Tip number 3 is practice, practice, practice. This one seems kind of simple, but it really works. Your mouth is made up of muscles and speaking is like exercise for your mouth. So the more you train your speaking, the more you train your mouth and practice, then your mouth muscles are going to get that muscle memory and speaking will become easier for you. Tip number 4 is imitate. Whether that be imitating the recordings in the book or by looking up films, series, and radio shows and listening to interviews, that kind of thing, and trying to repeat and imitate the speakers there. This can really help because you're going to learn what sounds more natural, and the more you practice, the better it'll get. Tip number 5 is being aware of different registers in a language. So that basically means what situation are you speaking in? Is it a more formal setting, like are you in a classroom? Are you talking to someone you don't know? Or are you with friends? Are you hanging out with people your own age? That kind of thing. So that can determine what kind of register of language you will use. For example, we'll take the phrase je ne sais pas, which means I don't know. And je ne sais pas, that's the standard way of saying it, the regular way, and it can be formal. So you can make it less and less formal by doing things like dropping the E and squishing different words together. I'll show you some examples how we go from je ne sais pas to the most informal. So you can squish that word together, those words together, like I said, by dropping the E and the ne. So je ne sais pas becomes je ne sais pas, je ne sais pas. And a lot of the time in French, you can even drop the ne, especially in informal settings. So je ne sais pas becomes je ne sais pas becomes je sais pas. And to make it even more informal, you're gonna squish that je and say together to become je sais pas, je sais pas. Je ne sais pas, je ne sais pas, je sais pas, je sais pas. Also, understanding the difference between the different registers will not only help you with your own speaking, but it can also help you when you're listening to French. Because if you're not aware that French speakers often drop the E and squish other words together, it might become more difficult for you to understand. But if you're aware of these dropping of the E or chute and squishing words together, then you will be able to understand more French. For number 6, we're going to talk about sounds, especially sounds that are difficult for English speakers. The first sounds I want to talk about are the U sounds in French. So, vous and tu. And these are kind of difficult for English speakers because we don't have the U sound in English. So sometimes we might even not know that there's a difference between the two, and it's really hard for us to imitate that sound, especially if we don't know that there's a difference. So for the vous sound, vous, your lips are very rounded, oo, and your tongue is not touching your bottom teeth. But for the tu, u, for that sound, your lips are rounded again, but your tongue is touching your bottom teeth. So, oo and u. Oo, oo, u. Okay? And I'll just share some other examples of words. So, for the oo sound, you have vous, tu, vous, gou. And for u, you have tu. Lots of past participles like bu and vu. Some more difficult sounds in French are the nasal vowels. So I'm talking about un, and on. Okay? So the first one, un, it's like un, like the number 1, un, vingt, and pain. Okay? Next is on, so on, bon, ton. Next is en. So vraiment, sans, lent. Okay? So the difference is un, your lips are very, like you're smiling. Next is on, so very rounded. And en, kind of like an A sound, en. So it's more open than the on sound. Another mistake that lots of Anglophones make is saying an N at the end of one of these vowel sounds, which there is not. They're nasal, so it sounds kind of like an N, but you're actually not saying N at the end. So for example, vingt, un, my mouth is not closing. I'm not saying vingt, I'm saying vingt. My mouth stays open. Bon, I'm not saying bon, bon. I'm not saying vraiment, okay? So mouth stays open, okay? Next up are the semi-vowels. So the difference between lui and oui. So this is kind of hard, especially for Anglophones as well. So lui. Gotta kind of do like a diphthong kind of thing. So oui, u. So the difference between lui and lui It's like the difference between the ou and the u. So for lui, it's like the u, and for lui, it's like ou, okay? And another semi-vowel is the y sound, which happens a lot when there's an I and an L, or I and two L's afterwards. So travail, fille, okay? And another thing that Americans, and I'm not sure about British people, but I know Americans do, is we like to add diphthongs, for example, at the end of words. If I was going to say the word pâté in an American accent, I might say pâté, pâté, okay? I don't do that when I'm actually speaking French, okay? So you say pâté, so your mouth does not move, pâté, okay? Instead of saying pâté, pâté, okay? Keep your jaw right here, pâté. The next sound is a consonant sound that can be difficult for Americans. For example, the R in French. So we would say R like R, but in French you say r. Okay, so R. So your mouth is a little more closed and your tongue is a little more flat. You can look up diagrams on how to pronounce all different sounds on the internet, as well as in different phonetics books. So let's practice saying a word in French that has all kinds of interesting sounds in it. For example, le français, le français. So le is pronounced le, le. And then you have in français, you have the R and nasal sound and a no diphthong at the end. So franc, franc, français. Le français. For number 7, I want to talk about intonation and syllable stress. So intonation is emphasizing different words, and that can be changing the volume of how you say the word, as well as pitch. So like, how are you? How are you? I know that's really exaggerated, but I want to show you an example. In French, it's pretty monotone except at the end because it's a question. So, comment vas-tu? Comment vas-tu? Okay, so I stay pretty neutral until the end. Comment vas-tu? Je vais bien. Je vais bien. And I go a little bit down on the end when I'm saying a normal sentence. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. So in English, it's a lot different and more exaggerated. You can go up in your intonation when you're speaking French when there are lists, or if it's a really long sentence. For example, elle est japonaise, intelligente et gentille. So elle est japonaise, intelligente et gentille. So I'm going up at the end before a comma and then down at the end of the sentence. When it comes to syllables, in French, they all are equal, except at the end of a sentence, the last syllable might be a little more emphasized. For example, je suis américaine. Je suis américaine. However, in English, we have lots of different rules for syllable stress. So, American, and I am American. I am American. Besides equal syllable stress, another reason that French can be difficult to understand and also pronounce is because of liaison and enchaînement. So these are basically ways of connecting words together and syllable sounds. So that's why sometimes it's really difficult to understand someone speaking French because it sounds like the words are all squished together. For example, elle est belle, elle est belle. I'm not saying elle est belle, elle est belle, elle est belle, okay? So the words all mesh together beautifully. The first type of connection I want to talk about are enchaînement consonantique, or consonant enchainments. I'm not really sure how to translate that. So the sentence I just said before, elle est belle, has an enchaînement consonantique. When you say elle est belle, so elle ends with an E, the word for she, elle, but when you have another word starting with a vowel, you need to kind of connect those words together. You don't say elle est belle, you say elle est belle. so that L moves over in front of the A. So elle est belle. Elle est belle. The next connection I'm going to talk about is an enchaînement vocalique. So this is when one syllable ends with a vowel and the next syllable also begins with a vowel. For example, je n'ai aucune idée. Je n'ai aucune idée. Je n'ai aucune idée. Aucune idée. Oh, sorry. Aucune idée, that's an enchaînement consonantique, but at the beginning, je n'ai aucune. Et aucune. Je n'ai aucune idée. So instead of saying je n'ai aucune idée, je n'ai aucune idée. So you kind of go up with your voice, extend that sound out before going to the next vowel. Je n'ai aucune idée. Now I'm going to talk about our friend the liaison. So this is when one syllable ends in a consonant and the next begins in a vowel. For example, je suis américaine. Je suis américaine. And you can look up rules for these liaisons because actually there are liaisons facultatives, so optional liaison, liaison obligatoire, so ones that are necessary, and liaison interdite, which are not allowed. For example, je suis américaine, that is a liaison facultative because you can say je suis américaine or you can say je suis américaine. Depending on the register you're speaking in. An example of une liaison obligatoire is with les Anglais. So les is an article, so les Anglais, it's obligatoire. An example of a liaison interdite is with the word a for and. So you would not say je voudrais une pomme et une banane. Never. You would say je voudrais une pomme et une banane. Et une banane. So then it becomes, guess what? Un enchaînement vocalique. And finally, the last couple of tips I have for you are record yourself speaking. That way you can listen back to yourself because in the moment when you're speaking, it can be hard to hear your mistakes. But if you go back and listen to them, you can really understand, oh, I thought I said it this way, but actually I need to practice this. And you can even compare it to the recordings from your phonetics book or whoever you're imitating in a series or film. And then finally, if you have someone to practice with, I would suggest practicing. That way the other person can help you. It's like the same thing when you're writing a paper. Sometimes you don't see all of your mistakes, so you want someone to peer edit it for you. And that concludes today's video on French pronunciation. Before you go, I just want to reiterate that learning a language is not always easy, and having an accent is again totally normal, especially after years and years of study and practice. However, the more you study and practice, the better you will feel and the more your accent will improve. But maybe years and years after studying, your accent might still not completely go away, and that's totally normal as well. I've studied French, I've lived in France, and continue to practice my pronunciation, but I still have a little bit of an accent, and that's okay. Before you go, make sure to like and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this video, and leave a comment telling me what kind of content you'd like to see next and what kind of tips you want to see for learning French. Bisous bisous!